What are the pros and cons of buying a house? As you know, in today's market, high prices, high interest rate, high inflation, it's very challenging to buy a house. Yet, the American dream is to own a house. And if you're on the fence of buying a house or thinking of buying a house, whether in a couple of months or a couple of years or 5 years, this may be a good video where I talk about some pros about buying a house and some cons on buying a house. Yet, I would highly recommend, not just because I'm a realtor, but because I own homes and several properties, there's far more advantages than disadvantages. That's my personal opinion. But here are pros and cons of buying a house. Before I get started on talking about the pros of buying a house or even the cons of buying a house, I wanted to let you know that anytime you buy a house or anytime I buy a house, and I've been selling homes for 25 years, it's always very nerve-wracking and challenging and a big step to buy a house. When you sign that contract or when you put that deposit or when you put that all down payment and sign the contract, it's very nerve-wracking. It's a big investment, one of the biggest transactions an average American makes. So it is challenging, yet it has to be done. So let's talk about the pros of buying a house. The number one pro is that you build equity, and there are two ways to build equity. The first way is all you have to do is pay your mortgage payment, and hopefully you own the house for 30 years. Most likely you will move and buy another house. You will move because of schools or job transfer or family or whatever. Regardless, an average American owns 2 or 3 homes as they move. But let's say you stay there for 30 years and you do nothing. Your equity will improve. What is equity? Equity is the difference between your house value and your house mortgage payments or any liens on the property. So how do you build equity? Well, you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is pay your mortgage. I'll give you an example. An average home over the past 20-30 years historically gains 4% per year on house value. So let's say the average home median price in USA right now is, let's say it's $400,000. It's actually less than that, but let's use a figure of $400,000. When I bought my house 25 years ago, it has tripled in value, and that's less than 30 years. So just because of the 4% increase, if you buy that house today for $400,000, there's a very good chance that in 30 years it'll double, triple, or quadruple for you doing nothing, just paying your mortgage. So that's a big advantage. And yet the second advantage of equity, or the second way you build equity, is that every time you make a mortgage payment, let's say your mortgage payment is $3,000 a month, within the first 10 years, most of the payment goes towards interest. That means, let's say out of the $3,000, you're going to pay $500 towards your principal and you're paying $2,500 towards the interest. Versus when you're renting, for example, that $3,000 is gone, you're paying the landlord's mortgage. But after 7, 8, 9, 10 years, when you pay your mortgage payment, your principal goes more towards your equity and less towards your interest. So as you pay your mortgage towards the 30th year, most of it is gone towards your principal payment. For example, my payment right now after I refinance is about $2,600, and I've got 7 more years left, and I see that $2,000 approximately is going towards my principal, going towards my equity, and only $600 is being paid towards my interest. So the way to the con, so the pros of owning a house, number one is equity. 2 ways you can make equity. One is for doing nothing, and the second is every time you pay your mortgage, you're building your equity. By the way, before I go on to the second advantage of buying a house, I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Mike Patel with First Team Real Estate, and I really appreciate you watching this channel and this video. And if I can ask you to subscribe to my channel as I come up with updates and trends every week, sometimes twice a week, I would really appreciate it. And also please make some comments and hit the bell button. I would really appreciate it. So the advantage number 2 is that, as I mentioned earlier, this is your biggest investment you will make. So to buy a house, you're going to do several things to be able to buy the house. Number 1, you're going to improve your credit score. So you're going to make all the payments in time. You're going to start saving money. So you're going to collect for the down payment. And then you're going to save for the moving costs and the closing costs. So when we say it's the biggest investment, whether you buy a house, an average house of $400,000 today, or $1 million house, an average home in Orange County, or maybe $2 million average home in the Bay Area, when you buy that home, you're making an investment. You're putting the down payment, 10% down, 20% down. If you buy $1 million home, 20% down is $200,000. If you buy a $400,000 house and if you put 20% down, that's $80,000. 10% down is $40,000. And if you just put 5% down, you're only paying $20,000 plus closing costs. So it's a big investment. And because of this investment that you've made, because of the money you have collected, maybe you borrowed from friends and family, family. You have to pay them back. What it teaches you to do is to become more frugal, more wise in spending your money. So buying a house and having that investment teaches you to be frugal, and it's a fast way to riches because you're spending your money wisely versus you renting and you're just blowing your money. And I've seen a lot of renters blow their money, and homeowners are very tight because they know that next month they have the payment whether they have the job or not. So they're very wise in spending. One of the things I also want to mention to you is that the advantage of owning a house, when I mentioned to you that you're going to build equity and you're going to make your biggest investment and you're going to collect money and save money, improve your FICO score, is that when you compare a renter and a homeowner and you compare the net worth of a homeowner is 40 times more than a renter. So here's a good reason for you to buy a house, or here the biggest advantage is that we are looking for equity. We are looking towards the riches 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road. And one way is to buy a house, because I can tell you my home value, for example, has gone up 3 times, almost by 800, 900, almost $1 million. And I know that if I was to save penny a day or $100 a day, I would have not done that. But because I invested 25 years ago and made my mortgage payment and kept up the house in pretty decent condition and the market went up, I have equity in there that makes my net worth a lot more compared to if I was renting still today and paying $4,000 a month rent, my net worth would be 40 times lower today. So owning a house on average gets you 40 times more net worth than just renting. The third advantage of owning a home or any real property is that you get tax benefits. You don't get that when you rent. When you own a house, you have certain tax benefits like your homestead. And of course, I'm not an accountant, so please consult with your attorney or accountant or a professional, but I'll give you a basics on taxes. Number one, your interest payment is deductible up to a certain limits, but nonetheless, it is deductible, so you get a tax deduction. The property taxes that you have to pay in Orange County, the property tax is 1.1% of the sales price. That can be deductible as well. When you buy a property and you have the closing cost and some interest points, loan points, appraisal fees, some of those costs are deductible. That makes a big difference in your taxes. So, and when it comes to homestead, you get certain tax deductions there as well because you have a certain amount that's adjusted on your tax forms. But like I said, talk to your accountant and see what are the tax advantages. There are definite tax advantages. In fact, on a side note, I know and I've sold to many investors homes and strip centers and land for the sole benefit of tax advantage. If you have a lot of taxes coming up, buy property. A lot of the people with high net worth buy secondary home, buy rental properties, buy commercial properties. And one reason is not just to own property, but to get immediate tax returns and get long-term tax deductions on depreciation. So there's a lot of advantages. I did a video a few weeks ago. It's called Don't Buy Now. If you want to see whether to buy now or later, please look at this video. The link is right here. The fourth advantage of owning a house, or the cons of owning a house, is that you get stability when you own a house. For one, once you buy a house, and assuming you have fixed rate for 30 years, you know that every month your payment is going to be $2,000 a month or $2,500 a month or $5,000 a month. It's fixed. When you're renting, you don't know when they're going to increase your rent depending on when your lease expires. So you have that stability that your payments is fixed, and you bought the house because you know you can afford it and you are comfortable with. So it'll be fixed for next 30 years unless you refinance or sell and move to another house. The other advantage when it comes to stability is that this is your house. Nobody can kick you out. Your landlord cannot give you a 60-day notice or 30-day notice to move. This is your house. You can stay as long as you want, and you can move whenever you want to. You can pre-plan when you want to. That's a lot of stability. And the other things when it comes to stability is that you know your neighborhood. If it's a decent neighborhood, you know your neighbors. The kids go to school. They have long-term friends because they know they can stay here for the next 4, 5, 6, 7 years or longer. You become friends with your neighbors. You become used to your shopping and your community, your restaurants, your movies. So you live in a community and get to grow and love your community more and more, as you know you're going to stay more in that neighborhood, and hopefully you will improve your house and neighborhood as your neighbors will, and grow with the community as you're growing equity and as you're growing in your job and your lifestyle. So it's a great stability to own a house. The fifth pro of owning a house is that you feel a sense of accomplishment. Buying a house, as I mentioned earlier, is very challenging, is nerve-wracking, and it's a big commitment, 30-year commitment on your mortgage payment. So when you buy a house, finally, you feel a sense of accomplishment, as I did when I bought my first house. I was very nervous. In fact, I bought my house, I won't date myself, but I bought a 2 bedrooms, 2 bath condo. I had just started a new business. My wife was not working, and I paid $121 $21,000 for a condo in Anaheim. And the first thing I said is, oh my God, my payment I remember was $679 at that time. And I thought, how will I make that payment? I was very nervous. But when I bought that, I was very accomplished. I was very satisfied. I sold that in about 5 years and bought a single family home to Anaheim Hills. And it made me grow because I got equity and I pulled the money out of that equity and used that to buy my second house. So it's a big accomplishment. And I know that to buy the house, the buyer, when you bought that house or when you buy that house, you had to make 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 year preparation to buy the house, collecting your down payment, reducing your debt ratios, paying off your mortgage, making sure that your job is stable. If you have kids, then you made sure the schools are what you wanted to do. If you wanted to move near your family, you move to your family and friends. So it takes a lot to buy a house, and when you buy it, it's a big sigh of relief that you have accomplished something. And of course, remember, buying a house is the #1 dream, and you've accomplished that. Congratulations. Let's talk about the cons of buying a house. But before I do that, I wanted to remind you to subscribe to my channel and also make comments and also hit the bell button. I would really appreciate it. So the #1 con of buying a house is that you need money up front. It takes a lot of money up front. And what kind of monies do you need? The first thing you need is obviously the down payment. Of course, with the government loans, you can buy a house for as low as 3.5%. So let's say the median home price around $400,000. It's less, but let's say if it's $400,000 and you use the government loan or a state funded loan, which is about 3 to 3.5%, you're going to need about $12,000 to $15,000 down payment. On top of that, you will need closing costs, reserves, moving costs, buying furniture, etc. So to buy a house, you need to have some money in the game to be able to buy, on top of cleaning up your credit and your debts, any of the loans that you have. If you have a refrigerator to pay or cars to pay or student loans to pay, all that makes a difference. So you do need down payment. On a $400,000 loan, an average of 10%, you need $40,000 plus closing costs, which could be another $10,000 or $15,000. You also have to pay the property tax up front, at least in California. So that's additional money you need. So you do need some dollars to buy a house. Con #2 in buying a house is that once you get a loan mortgage, and assuming it's fixed for 30 years, you are committed for that payment for 30 years. Let's say you moved in, be near your job, and your wife is working close by. What happens is if one of you loses a job and you have a payment of $4,000, well, you're still gonna have to make that money and make that payment because it's a commitment you made. So you make a 30-year commitment. The other commitment you make is that you are betting that the prices will stay. Right now, as of 2022, we have seen a price increase for the last 8 or 9 years, maybe even more. So let's say you buy now, and let's say the market goes down, which a lot of people are saying that it's going to go down by 5, 10, 20, 30%, depending on who you talk to. So even though your prices go down on the house, you still have to make the same mortgage payment. So it's a big commitment to make, because if you lose a job or if you can't afford to make the payments, you cannot not make the payments. You end up selling the house, and if the prices are down, you may lose some money. The third con of buying a house is that it's a money guzzler. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but when you own a house, just like you need food every day, nourish your body, you need to, quote, nourish your house almost not every day, but on a monthly basis or quarterly basis or yearly basis. House needs maintenance. Your sink may go out. You have to change your filters every 6 months. If you have a garden, you have to do gardening. You have to spend some money on your water and the fertilizers, bringing in plants and flowers. You might have something break, you have to fix it. So once you buy a house, if you're renting, you can call the landlord, so you're off the hook there, an advantage of renting. But when you own the house, you have to fix it. I remember when I bought my house, I had a major roof leak about a month after I moved in. Cost me a total of $8,000, and I could barely afford the home, and I had to dish out $8,000. And to this day, the roof still gives me problems. I've changed it, but I have leaks some other places. I have bad luck with roofs, but that's another story. So when you buy a house, the disadvantage is you have to maintain it. Not only that, you have to update it, because as you stay longer in there and as you invite friends and family, you want to update the refrigerator, or you want to put some new tiles or new paint, put new lights, put some more gardening, have some curb appeal. All that costs you money on top of the mortgage payment that you have. So it is a dollar guzzler, but the enjoyment is definitely there. But that's a negative when it comes to a house. By the way, I did a video a few weeks ago. It's called Save Big on down payment. The link is right here. Feel free to watch it. Buying a house, con number 4 is that you have to pay property taxes every year on your property. Property taxes are a percentage. For example, in Orange County, California, my property tax is 1.1% of the purchase price that I paid. And it goes up almost every year based on a certain numbers, which I won't talk about. So on top of your mortgage payment, your maintenance and upkeeping, one of the things that will not go away is your property taxes. You have to pay it every year. You can pay it in your mortgage payments every month, or in California, I paid every year, twice a year. They send me a bill and I pay half and half, but I have to pay it every year. And it has gone up, not by much, but it does go up every year. So even though I mentioned that your payments are fixed, that was for your mortgage payments, but your property taxes are not fixed. They do go up. So as you live longer in the house, 20 years, 15 years, 25 years, your property taxes will go up. But the good thing is it is also deductible, but it is an expense on top of your mortgage payment. Before I give you the disadvantage of buying a house, number 5, I wanted to take one more moment and request or ask you to subscribe to my channel and also make some comments and also hit the bell button. I know I'm asking for a lot of things, but I would really appreciate it. I want to grow my channel so I can share my thoughts about real estate trends to more people like yourself. So thanks for watching. So con number 5 is once you buy a house, you get stuck with the house. It's not like you're renting where you can move in a year or 2 years or give a 60-day notice or 30 days notice and move. Once you buy a house, you're pretty much gonna stay. An average American used to stay 7 years, but I would say an average American stays 7 to 10 years and then moves because of jobs or family or schools or whatever reason. So you may move 1 or 2 or 3 times. So average, you're gonna stay at least 10 years. So if you bought a house and you got a great job and your company moves further out, then you're stuck at that house and you may have to travel more. Or if there's a certain school you want to put your kids into, you're restricted to where they can go to school in that neighborhood. If you want to go out for dinner and there's not a great restaurant, you may have to go out. For example, I'm in Anaheim Hills and there are some great restaurants, kind of, sort of. So I end up going to Irvine, Spectrum or some other areas and I have to drive 20-30 miles. So I'm stuck in this neighborhood and what it offers. But that is the con of buying a house. The other thing is when you're making these payments and you're keeping up your house, and if your neighborhood does not keep up with you as far as remodeling and keeping the curb appeal, and if there are some other sales in the neighborhood that are lower home prices, they'll take your home prices down. So it's stable to a certain limit, but you lose your stability and you get stuck there no matter what the neighborhood does. Whether the neighborhood goes up or it goes down, you'll be stuck in that neighborhood. And I've seen a lot of neighborhoods that keeps on appreciating because the neighbors are nice, the association have some rules and regulations, so the neighborhood is maintained. But I've also seen neighborhoods where something happens with the ramp and they block off the road, or there's some gang activity or there's crime activity, or there's neighborhoods where there are a lot of renters. Not that renters are bad, but there's more problems in a rental neighborhoods than in decent upscale neighborhoods. So these are some of the disadvantages and I will leave you at that. Thanks for watching. My name is Mike Patel.